1, Chapter 4, Learning Target 10, Phase Shifts. Yeah! This is Miss Oshier.
And Miss LaHart.
And here we go. So, quick reminder. Vertical shifts affect how high and low you go. That's always going to be whatever's being added outside of the function. So see how over here we have the different functions, sine and cosine. This, it could be a plus or a minus. This random number out here, that's your vertical shift. If it's a positive, you go up. If it's a negative, you go down. So if you were to look at this blue original function, a positive 2 would shift both the top of your amplitude and the bottom of your amplitude up 2, and it would shift it down if it were negative. Boom.
All right, so let's do, oh, and this also, just a quick reminder that a negative out front reflects it over the x, whereas negative within reflects it over the y. We haven't really done the reflecting over the y because we don't really need to.
No, but we're just reminding you because that is a thing that you should know.
All right, here we go. Let's actually do an example.
Okay, so we're going to graph 2 cycles of the function. So this is the function, and we're just going to move it down 3.
Yep.
So everything else still happens as usual. Amplitude is 2, frequency is a fourth, period is 2 pi divided by that, which is 8 pi, divide that by 4, and we have our intervals. What changes are our high and low points. Instead of our high and low points being at 2 and negative 2, we subtract 3 from those values. Excuse me, 2 minus 3 is negative 1, negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So now this is kind of like our x-axis right through here.
And now you're just sketching a normal sine curve.
Boom.
Okay.
Look at that.
And again, if you want to start with putting the points on your original and then moving your points down, that's fine. Just make sure that it's very apparent on your answer which graph you mean.
Yes, please.
Okay. Now, left and right is the difficult one. Okay, this is going to take a little bit more to think about.
So again, here is our functions. We have this new value of c, so it's going to be added or subtracted inside the parentheses. The first thing you need to realize is in order to find the distance of your phase shift, you need to do c divided by b.
Because remember, your b value represents your frequency, which really is kind of like a scale factor in shrinking and stretching and all that jazz. So you have to keep that into consideration when you go to figure out how far you are shifting.
And then for positive is left and negative is right. That's the opposite. We know that. It's how it goes.
Okay, so that one right there in blue is a regular sine of x curve, but then if you take it and subtract pi over 4, again, pi over 4 of the frequency divided by 1 is still pi over 4. So we're just shifting it to the right.
Boom. So what would the phase shift be here? Well, again, it's c over b, pi over 2 divided by 1/2, multiplied by the reciprocal, pi. So it's pi units, and then you look here, positive means to the left. Boom. All right, so let's do a phase shift. Here we go. Amplitude, frequency, and period are all still going to matter, but right now we need to go left, and then it's always c over b, which is pi over 2. So left, pi over 2.
Okay.
Our amplitude is still 3.
Our low is still negative 3. That hasn't changed. Frequency is still 2. Period we still have to find, so that's 2 pi over, so we have pi. Okay.
So now, we know that if you divide that by 4, you get our original intervals. That is what the first number in this table is. So here, we are giving you the output, so your amplitude. Okay. At 0, we're at 0, then we go up, then we go down, then we go down, then we go up. Okay, that's what's happening here. Look at the first number in here. The first number in this chart is your original intervals. So pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and pi.
But we are taking all those values and shifting them left pi over 2. So I've just shown all the work where I subtract pi over 2 so I can get what values I need on my new graph. Okay? All subtracting pi over 2, all subtracting pi over 2.
So what's left are pi over 2, pi over 4, blah, 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 blah. What you need to pay attention to is right here when you're graphing. If you're not going to make this table, your new 0, your new origin is at negative pi over 2. So here is where you start your graph, and then you do your from there. So this is what's going to look like with all of our new coordinates.
This is nice because we can still use like the original interval. We would just do pi over 4 each time. This is still the same because we're just shifting pi over 2, which in this case, in our interval, is just over 2 ticks marks.
2 ticks.
Okay.
So as you can see, if like we said, this is your new origin. Notice how you have a full curve this way and you have a full curve that way. Boom.
And that's all there is to it.
Beautiful.
A little scary.
All right, one more.
We're going to do both. We're going to shift up. And we're going to shift, I think that's right, pi over 1, it'll pop up.
Flip it, and it's pi over 2, I think.
Yep.
I just did that in my head. I don't know.
All right, so we look at our amplitude. The original would be 1 and -1, but remember we have to shift it up 2. So our interval would be 3 to +1.
Boom. And then our phase shift is 6 pi. I definitely didn't say 6 pi. Oops. That's why I don't
it's
do
pi
it in
over
your
2.
head, people.
Yes, because phase shift, again, if you
No,
hit
you're right,
enter,
I'm
it'll
right.
pop up. Pi over 6 divided by 1/3 is the same thing.
Okay, good. I was right. I thought this is the answer. I was like, oops, I was wrong.
Oh, no, period.
That was our original one. There we go. Okay, so we're going pi over 2 to the right. Again, these are our original interval points that you guys all know how to get. We're adding, because we're going to the right, pi over 2, and getting our new interval points. All of these values are our new up, down kind of points based on the fact that we now are at 3 and 1. So if you were just going to graph this, you would write down your intervals. Obviously, as we discussed, we only have these marked, okay? You should have, just mark them like this, 13 pi over 2, 5 pi, etc. It's hard to fit all of that on a PowerPoint, okay? So we now are, instead of starting here, we are starting at pi over 2, which is located right here.
Yep.
So there's my rise point, and I'm again at 3, not 1, because I was shifted up 2. And you just fill it in.
Okay. Like I said, the hardest part in this is going to be getting that x interval. Not really the y, because moving it up and down is pretty kind of self-explanatory, but if you've got to start fixing your interval on the x-axis. And another thing that we didn't mention today is that if this is switch to degrees, like look at what they should be at in degree measure,
See if
and
that
then
helps.
think about a good interval to go by on your x-axis.
And that's it. So we will see you in class. Have a wonderful day. That's all for now.